bloody fantastic.
Hello everyone, my name is Goodboy and welcome to a video on how to win with the warrior strategy in Dota Auto Chess. Before we begin the video, please give the video a like, a subscribe, and of course hit the notification button. I love it when you do that. So many of you may have noticed that over the weekend there was a nice little patch update and we saw the addition of Tiny, which is also now classed as a warrior, and basically that gave us 9 warriors overall, which gave us a 9 warrior synergy, which now means warriors can get a grand total of 24 armor, providing of course you have 9 different unique warriors. This is pretty insane, and this is a very easy strategy for you to exploit, particularly even in the early game where it can be exploited quite nicely. So before we jump into that, let's just run through every single warrior, how much they cost and what that means. So there are no 5 cost warriors, but there are 3 1-cost warriors. That would be Axe, Tusk, and Tiny. Tusk does his smash in the face, Axe does his taunt, and Tiny throws people with his toss ability. Juggernaut and Slardar are 2-cost. Juggernaut is also an orc, and a Slardar is a Naga, which gives you spell immunity, but we'll get on, not spell immunity, but magic resistance. Blade Fury for Juggernaut, and Slardar does Caustic Haze, pretty strong abilities. Lycan is the only level 3 3-cost warrior with his transform, and then Doom, Conquer, and Troll Warlord are all 4 costs. They have Doom, Ghost Ship, and Further. Now, if you take a step back from that, obviously Warrior is one of the easiest classes to draft from because there's so many warriors that you're going to get. There are no expensive final finishing warriors, which make the game more annoying and difficult to deal with. And perhaps most notably, there are actually 3 level 1 warriors, Axe, Tusk, and Tiny, that you can literally get from the word go. It also, because there are 3 of them, it makes it pretty easy for you to get a 2-star hero by either round 2 or certainly by round 3, at least one or possibly multiple of those units. So even in the early game, it's pretty easy to draft yourself together multiple warriors with big strength. And if you think about it, all you need is 3 to get that initial armor buff, which is quite notable because you're only going to be taking, or it's very likely that you'll be taking physical damage in the early parts of the game. So warriors are perfect for starting out with. As always, the usual caveat arrives, it depends what you get drafted. You don't get any warriors and you get a load of bat riders or shamans or whatever, you draft those instead. But what I'm saying is that if it is rolling your way, then they are a great one to select from. You can level them up quickly so that when you finally face other people, you could very easily have 3 2-star warriors with insane synergy. Now, because there's 9 warriors, there's actually a load of other internal synergy. So for example, Axe is an orc, so is Juggernaut, so they both get a health buff. Lycan is a human, as is Conquer, so then you can get a disarm buff ability. Tusk and Lycan are both beasts, which means you also get a damage buff. So when you have all 9 warriors, you get all these other great synergies as well, which are hilarious to use on your enemies. But the biggest thing, like I say, obviously is the armor buff. Now, one of the most important things to take into account when playing with warriors is actually leveling. You're going to have, your aim is to get 9 warriors on the board, so that means consistent leveling is important. Typically, the usual stop-off point is level 6, so once you're level 6 and you've got 6 chess pieces on the board, assuming of course they're all warriors, hopefully they will be, but maybe they won't, or maybe level 7 once you've finally got 6 warriors given the extra armor buff, then at that point you want to be stockpiling your gold. Maybe you've been doing it beforehand successfully, but generally that's when you're going to rush to it. Once you get to your 50 gold stockpile, it is then literally cycle a couple of times, level. But you should be leveling pretty much every turn or every other turn in order to get to what you're after. So that's kind of the strategy there, as it were. The big thing to look out for though is actually late game. Typically you'll end up accumulating another chess piece that, for example, isn't actually a warrior. At a key point in the game, particularly once you're level 9, you really should have all 9 warriors. And even if you have to go through your gold to get that 9th warrior, it makes such a big difference to your game. But once you do have that 9th warrior, then you have usually very, very tanky heroes who are incredibly armored. So physical damage wise, they should be completely fine. The only thing you have to look out for is magic damage, but that's when the addition of either Medusa or Tide Hunter for your 10th chess piece can become very useful. You see, Slada is also a Naga, and Naga allows you to have magic resistance for all allies. So if you drop down either a Tide Hunter, which is probably better, or a Naga, a Naga unit that is Medusa, whichever one comes to you easy, put that down, then straight away all your armoured tanky warriors also get quite a large magic protection. And typically that is enough to help sustain against both magic damage and also physical damage builds. So in the early game I managed to secure myself a level 3 axe, a Juggernaut and a Tiny, which was pretty, to be fair, insanely good RNG. But then at the same time, not that insane, given the fact that there's so much, so many one-cost warriors. You know, there's 3 one-cost warriors. But the Juggernaut axe combo is awesome because it only requires 2 to get your orc leveling. So that was pretty insane. And then straight away they all got the immediate armor buff. But what took a turn even for the better, and this pretty much set me up for, like, you know, golden winning as it were, was 2 Tinies showed up and I had 2 Tinies, which was just like absurd, completely and utterly absurd. So in terms of RNG wise, having 2 level 3s that early on in the game set me up to pretty much guarantee the successive rounds and get me to level 6 without much difficulty at all. My game strategy would be fairly straightforward, and because I was seeing a lot of elves, naturally of course I'd get the elves and they're much easier to level. They used to be a lot more powerful druids and elves, but now not so much. So they nerfed them both, took them offline and stuff like that. But as you can imagine, obviously 2 level 3s and 1 level 2 warrior is just absurd, and of course that put me very, very nicely with a commanding lead. Then the approach would be quite straightforward. All I would do is just work towards getting to my level 6 and then stockpiling. But in the mid game, I had still a fairly flawless victory, but I was doing a druid warrior synergy. So there was a less of an emphasis of getting 6 warriors on the board to give me the next round of armor buff, and more of an emphasis of just strong units, and that did seem to be working pretty nicely. You got to remind, one of the coolest things about druid is that there is massive levels of sustain from Enchantress and also from Treant Protector. Now again, Treant Protector has been nerfed pretty badly, yada yada yada, but at the same time, when it's kind of silly if you're getting lots and lots of quite good value units that are easy to place down and play, to then just sort of ignore that. The only thing I would say though that is kind of a weakness for the warrior strategy in general is the chances are there will be somebody else doing it, which means you sit with a lot of level 3s on the board and you never actually get your final completion to get them into from a 2-star to a 3-star. So that can be pretty frustrating, which is why it's very good to have a backup plan. Like I say, you don't necessarily have to use druids. For example, you could use knights or trolls or whatever floats your boat really. Warriors synergize pretty easy with most of the other sets and classes. So in the late game, I made a fairly critical error, and that was I failed to evolve my strategy quick enough. In the sense that I had 9 warriors that I could play on the board, and I made the mistake of having only 8 there instead of 9, and the consequence was fairly catastrophic, because I was then fighting an enemy with considerably less, who was able to do a lot more damage to me, all for the sake of having, say, an extra druid. And I think that's kind of like the big thing to get right. Now obviously I corrected it and then put down my last piece missing was Slada, so I put down my Slada, that made up my 8th warrior, and as a result I got insane levels of armor and protection. So that made a giant difference in terms of starting fights and generally winning them. In fact, it completely changed the game thinking about it. So naturally, I put my Naga down, and even though he was, very, very underleveled, a 1-star Naga, it didn't actually matter because there's 10 additional armor for my entire team of warriors. So that sort of set me up pretty nicely to then finish and actually kill all the all the annoying little ranged guys. So that was pretty good. That allowed me to clear up, and then it set me up nicely to then pretty much take on the last remaining guy who managed to pull ahead of me, mainly because I forgot to put down the Slarder. And then as a result, by being careful about my leveling, and Troll is a great hero, by the way, to put a lot of items on. But obviously you need to make sure that you're, for example, if you have a broadsword, that does also make a blade mail. So that's a pretty smart use of using it on one of your tanky heroes. But failing that, obviously putting lots and lots of damage into them is awesome. Then with that being done, and with that massive armor buff, suddenly my enemy found that they couldn't do anywhere near the same level of damage anymore, which was, well, awesome. So previously, where I was losing pretty much hands down, suddenly they were finding that he wasn't doing any damage to me anymore. And literally that was the difference, is I lost about 3 or 4 games in a row, or 3 or 4 rounds in a row to the same person, even though, just because I was missing that one warrior. So finally getting the last warrior in, then set me up, and then that put me in very nicely to have dominance, and then start winning the game again. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. Please give the video a like, subscribe and share, and stay tuned for more great stuff coming soon. Goodbye.